as we stumble along and we make decisions and get ourselves into trouble, the Divine Mother, the Heavenly Father, will always receive us, will always take us back home. So good morning. I just want to explain that there's many of us on retreat in Lake Stevens at Heart Song. Padma and Riman are leading a silent retreat for Kriyabans there all weekend. So I am absolutely delighted to see all of you here this morning. This is wonderful. I want to start with a joke that has nothing to do with the subject, but I couldn't pass it up. So there was a young artist, and he was having a one-man show, the first time he'd ever shown his art out to the public. And as it turns out, there was a famous critic at the show, an art critic. And so the art critic approached the young artist and said, this is who I am, and the young man knew of him. And he said, do you want me to tell you what I think of your show? And the young man said, yes. And he said, well, it's worthless. And the young man said, that's all right, just tell me anyway. I just couldn't resist that. The promise of the scriptures. This is a very interesting story. And we need to really pay attention to this return, because this return of the prodigal son is something that we do often in our path to understanding the deeper realities of which we are a part. So what is it? What is it that we are returning to? And what did we go out of? What's the story? How does it apply? Well, here it is. In childhood, we perhaps had a loving home with a caring father and the promise of some means for getting along in the world. And then came the rebellion. And we just decided we'd do it our own way, and we rejected all that we'd been given. And then we fell on troubled times. Now you can take this little scenario and apply your own personal story to it. What we expect is a lot of criticism for what we've done. And from human beings, we get a lot of criticism for what we've done, and the expression from parents and from friends that we're kind of crazy. I remember I had found Ananda. I was still working in the library as a children's librarian. And there was a customer there who he began to understand that I was interested in the deeper realities. And he just wanted to know what in the world I'd gotten myself into. I really had no idea what his thoughts were on the subject. And I was very new on the path, and the little book that I picked out to give him was The Science of Religion, which wasn't a great choice. I realized later, but it was a little book, and it's what I had at hand. So I said, well, this might give you some idea of where I'm headed. He returned the book to me, and he said, I'm very sorry for you. Wasn't that an interesting remark? I'm very sorry for you. This story tells us how very important it is for us to remember that this journey that many people feel sorry for us about is the ultimate journey in life. We have now come to ask the ultimate questions about what's going on. And as we stumble along and make decisions, as the reading said, decisions come from within myself, and it may, for many, many times, be diluted, and we make decisions and get ourselves into trouble. The Divine Mother, the Heavenly Father, will always receive us, will always take us back home. There is not anything that we could do, any trouble that we could get into, any mistake that we could make, that the Heavenly Father wouldn't take us back. That's wonderful to know. It's very important to know, because many of us get into lots of trouble, and then we carry around a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. It's not necessary, because the mistakes we make are the mistakes that would be made of a little ego that didn't know something more about the life of this person that it's carrying around. So there's no need for guilt. There's no need for shame. That's an extra burden that we put on ourselves. I found a little story that someone had suggested. It was just a little story that Hemingway wrote, and it was called The Paco Story. Let me see if I brought it with me. Yes, The Paco Story. So here's the little story. A father became so unable to deal with his rebellious son that he threw him out. And then he began to feel remorse, and he began looking for him. He'd write a note. This was in Madrid. That was the setting. He'd write a note and post it on the board in the community, and he posted such a note looking for Paco, and he posted it in the newspaper office. And here's what he said. Dear Paco, please meet me here tomorrow. I'm sorry I threw you out. I want to offer you my love and forgiveness. 100 Pacos showed up. That's the truth of it. We're all in that situation one time or another. And God has never thrown us out. So that's double richness for us. On the happiness scale, Patanjali says, the soul remembers what it has always been. And so what is this forgetfulness we have? What is this amnesia? It's because, as Yogananda tells us, the ego is the soul attached to the body. And then the body begins to rule. As Murli said in his prayer this morning, we want to let go of all the directions that this body gives us and not be so tied to our ego issues, our ego desires, just to cool it. Because there's so much richness when we can listen to the other voice. There's so much richness. The way I've dealt with it in my life is to think about all the little voices I have within me, all the issues, all the ways in which I have ideas and thoughts that want to guide me. And for a long time, the ego was the chairman of the board, so was at the top of the table and had control over the meeting of all these little voices. But now I've put God there, and I want the ego to take its proper place. It takes a lot to convince it that it's going to have a place among many. The ego doesn't like that setup, but that's the truth of it. And so then what you have access to is that forgiving God, that loving God, that I'm sorry you felt so far away from me. I've always been here for you. It's really true. It's really true if we can give ourselves a chance to live in that way. And there's a Kriya group that meets to have discussions, and we're studying the autobiography of a yogi, and we study. It's like many of us have read that book many, many times, and the stories are familiar. But those stories in the autobiography can be mined so deeply. And so we were discussing this past week two penniless boys in Vrindavan, and it's been mentioned many times recently up here, so I won't go into it, but that ultimate faith that God will provide, even physically, that Yogananda had when he went to test his brother's challenge, that is truth. That is the way, that is where we are. That is the way things operate. When we can meditate and get ourselves into the right relationship with our soul, with our relationship to God, then so many things are available to us that will bring us great happiness and great joy, and also tremendous guidance for how to live this lifetime, because this lifetime is for something specific. This lifetime is something that you were meant to do. You were meant to sing your song. And so who's your best guide? God is your best guide to find out what that is. And many of us have recognized this. And we do suffer. And suffering is one of the ways in which we are brought to the realization that there's a whole nother story going on. Suffering is an opportunity for changing our orientation. Isn't it crazy? I mean, it's really crazy. It's really like, what kind of setup is this? What kind of setup is this? But that's what suffering is about. We make a choice, it doesn't work out. We feel bad, or something happens to us physically that's pretty life-changing. All those ways in which we can suffer. We hurt other people hurt us, because we start with no connection with the Father. We feel cast out. We're on our own. I can do it myself. I'm rebellious. I'm a little Paco. I can go out there in the world and do it like I choose. But it's not the truth of it. We will get into trouble and we will suffer. And then we have to say, what's going on here? And then many people take a bit of time to get through the feeling that they're angry at God. I've met many people, when they're going through a challenging time, be angry at God. And God just waits. He just waits for us to give reference to His advice, to His love, to His forgiveness. And then the story becomes so much richer. Where do I want to go? Okay. Master said an interesting thing. He said, as soon as I detach myself from this body, this means mentally, not take all the clues for how I feel and how I should behave from what my body is doing. As soon as I detached myself from this body, I saw it was just a dog I had to take care of. That's kind of funny. And then, of course, Kriyananda made his famous remark, Kriyananda is just an event for which I am responsible. That's the way he felt. We should remember that joyful return. That's what I want you to remember from today, the joyful return. And don't expect ease, but do expect joy. Don't expect comfort. Do expect challenge. And remember, think of it this way. You are the sky. This chant, I am the sky, Mother, I am the sky. And all else is just weather. And what I want to suggest there is take it lightly. Once you have God in your heart, once you have God in your meditation, take everything else just, okay, I probably am responsible for this. This experience is mine. And with God at my side, with God always calling me home, with God having the doors open for me to return, I can get through it. So we drift away and we come back, and we drift away and we come back. That's the way the story works. Until finally, as we can witness in the lives of the great ones and the lives of the saints, we finally are totally God's. And that is a wonderful day for God and a wonderful day for us. We mustn't consider a bad choice to limit our eternal destiny. It may take a while, but thinking to turn back toward home is a praiseworthy idea, not a weakness. Religion is a friend. As it says in the reading, God is our loving Father. There's nothing to forgive. He just wants to see us wake up to his guiding presence. And one of the great commandments of Jesus, love one another as I have loved you, is our ticket through our new world. Our expression of loving God and feeling his love is not to shut ourselves away, but to participate from this new perspective. Thank you.